Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Command Zone podcast. I'm one of your upbeat hosts today, Jimmy Wong.
And I'm your other host. It's Rachel Weeks.
Yay, Doctor Who is here. Boo-wee. There are Doctor Who themed precons, Universes Beyond in the Doctor Who world featuring Doctor Who characters. But even if you're a Doctor Who fanatic, there are still some sweet, even if you're not a Doctor Who fanatic, there are some sweet cards. And today we're going to be talking about the most powerful commanders from the set. But before we get into it, let's talk about our sponsors, cardkingdom.com/command. That's the place you're going to have to go if you want to buy any of these magic cards at the precons, maybe some cards from the precons if you don't want to buy the precons. Maybe you want to buy some of the precons from Days Old of Warhammer and other Universes Beyond. Maybe you want a pure Fortnite straight up only Universes Beyond deck. Well, the place you're going to get that done is cardkingdom.com/command. And you can also mix in some of those old boring magic cards with them as well. If you want to. Card Kingdom has a huge inventory, not only from the most recent sets, but from sets dating all the way back to the beginning. So you can choose if you want that 7th edition foil or if you want that reprint that happened in M21. It is up to you, my good friends. But make sure you use our affiliate link, cardkingdom.com/command, to check out what they've got on their website and also to support the show.
And once those cards are in your hand, you're going to need to protect them, dress them up, keep them organized. Go to ultrapro.com/command for all of the highest quality magic accessories on the market.
In the planet.
In the planet.
In the universe.
Around
this universe.
The galaxy. ULTRAPRO just released they just announced a very exciting new line of sleeves called Apex sleeves.
So good.
You can print on them so that they can have art on them, but they also have a great shuffle feel and are really super durable, just like you would expect from any ULTRAPRO sleeve. And we're very excited about them.
Yeah. Also, the Prof just released his deck box review, and he gave the Satin Tower is still one of the best grades, one of the best deck boxes on the market.
Love a Satin Tower.
And this is ULTRAPRO at their best, right? They know how to make magic products, and they know how to keep your cards squeaky, clean, and protected.
ultrapro.com/command.
And finally, you can support the show directly at patreon.com/commandzone. That's the full name there, because when you're a patron, you get to join our Discord. At higher tiers, you get exclusive content. You get to watch episodes of Game Nights and extra turns a day early without ads. What? So you can comment first on another video instead. And we also shout out one lucky patron every single video. So this one's dedicated to Brad Springall.
Thanks, Brad.
You rock.
All right, let's get into it. Today we are talking about the most powerful commanders in the Doctor Who set. These are the 4 precons. There are many, many, many legendary creatures in this set. We are going to talk about the ones that have the most potential to be cool, synergistic, powerful commanders. We can't talk about them all there, especially because of the Doctor companion thing.
Oh,
There's like hundreds of combinations of potential commander decks. So we're just going to tell you about the ones that we think are going to be the most powerful today, starting with, he's a bad guy. It's Ashad, the lone Cyberman.
This
Cyberman?
is Cyberman.
Just one.
Cyberman looks like Iron Man. You didn't hear that from me. It's 1 blue, black, and a red for a 3/3 legendary artifact creature type Cyberman. The first non-legendary artifact spell you cast each turn has casualty 2. As you cast it, you may sacrifice a creature with power 2 or greater. When you do, copy it. A copy of an artifact spell becomes a token. And then it also says whenever you sacrifice another creature, put a 1/1 counter on Ashad, the lone Cyberman.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, very sweet. Obviously, when you sack stuff, this gets bigger, but the really important part is the first one, you get to copy non-legendary artifact spells as long as you sacrifice a creature with 2 or more power when you cast that spell.
First thing I looked at here, we want artifact creatures that have power 2 or more and like to die.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of them. Artifact creatures are sort of known for doing loopy-doopies.
Yeah, the
for
dupes.
Sacking this to get this back, to bring that to... But a lot of those are power 1 or less, so you're going to need some 2 power guys as well, starting with the one, the only, the lonely robot, sad robot. It's Solemn Simulacrum.
Yeah, so it's a 2/2. When it dies, you may draw a card. It also has an ETB ability, so this is great on both sides of it.
Right.
It's a non-legendary artifact spell. It doesn't have to be a creature for the first part, but you can cast this Solemn, maybe sacrifice something else with 2. You get 2 Solemns, and then you can cast something else, and you can sacrifice one of those Solemns. This is just getting the gravy train running.
Yeah, for
also,
sure.
Ashad's a 3-color deck, so Solemn's actually pretty good in these scenarios, I think.
Get you some fixing.
Now, Another card that's a creature that's pretty good is Dross Scorpion. These scorpions like to see things die. So this is, again, a creature that works on both sides. Having 2 of these out is real good, but having just 1 out and using its ability, which is when Dross Scorpion or another artifact creature is put into a graveyard, you may untap target artifact. Wow. Imagine if you have 2 of those and a Soul Ring.
Seems good.
Sack 1 Solemn, you untap your Soul Ring twice, you float 4 mana. Pretty good.
Pretty good. It is 4 mana, but I think you're going to get enough mana back from this that it is completely worth it.
And it's a 3/1, so it does count for casualty too, should you want to sacrifice it, because it also triggers when it dies.
I really like Treasure Keeper in decks like this. This is a 4 mana artifact creature with power 3. When it dies, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card with mana value 3 or less. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost.
Whoa.
Put all revealed cards not cast this way on the bottom of your library in a random order.
Cool.
So the important thing here is the cast trigger, because I suppose if you're sacrificing this, then you already have the casualty trigger. But
Yeah.
if this is dying for some other reason, you can get a spell off of the Treasure Keeper, sacrifice something else, and get the casualty off of the spell you're casting with the Treasure Keeper, if it's an artifact.
And if you have a sack outlet, which there are many in these colors, because it's the first non-legendary artifact spell you cast each turn, you can wait till another turn to sacrifice the Treasure Keeper, have its thing happen, and then you can again cast. Or you can sacrifice the Solemn, and then that's going to trigger... let's say you can flash out something else and then sack this Treasure Keeper, do it on another turn as well.
Pretty sweet.
Now, cards that die that like to add mana, Cathodian is a classic. When Cathodian dies, you add colorless times 3, so 3 colorless mana. It's a 3/3.
Gives you the mana back to cast some more fun stuff.
Yeah.
Clone Shell is when it dies, you get to cast something exiled underneath it for free. I believe it has to be a creature.
Yes, imprinted.
A creature card. Yeah. So when it comes in, you find a creature, you imprint it under the Clone Shell. When the Clone Shell dies, then you get to cast the imprinted card. So
you put it on the battlefield. You don't cast it. Yeah.
You put it onto the battlefield.
But it likes to die specifically. So.
And it's really good to make token copies of. 2 Clone Shells digs you pretty deep.
I think when you look at Ashad, the big thing is you have to both cast spells and sacrifice spells at the same time. So the best cards in your deck are going to be good on both sides and doing both having the enter the battlefield ability that you might potentially double if you casualty it, but also a dies ability because you need stuff to casualty away. If you built casualty decks in the past, you'll know that this is the case.
Yeah, and if you've got a lot of stuff with dies trigger, you got to put Drivnod, Carnage, Dominus in this deck. It says if a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time.
Yeah, it's like the Tesa ability, right?
Yeah,
but we don't have white.
Right.
This is mono black.
Mono black.
Okay, now let's talk about stuff that likes to get value back from the things that are dying, that are coming back. They're not just dying and staying out of the game forever. Cryptic is a Warhammer card. It has a 1 in the black activated ability to tap. Choose another target artifact creature you control. When that creature dies this turn, return to the battlefield tapped under your control.
There's a lot of sweet cards in this Warhammer deck that have to do with artifact creatures, specifically black artifact creatures. So that's a great place to look for a lot of tech. I really liked Psychomancer in this deck as well. This is 2 mana, 1/1 with flying. Whenever it or another non-token artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield or is put into exile from the battlefield, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. That's right. It's a Blood Artist-ish.
2 mana, artifact Blood Artist.
Yeah.
Warhammer cards are really good at doing that. They're like, here's a very popular effect, but let's limit it to just artifacts, just black artifacts or whatever it is. But because you are, again, in Grixis, there are a lot of sweet cards that work like that.
Yeah, and because they're artifact creatures themselves, you could double them with your commander.
Now, this is a legendary artifact, so you cannot copy this spell, but it is a really good one. It's Gerard's Hourglass Pendant. It has flash for 1 mana, and it says if a player will begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead. But more importantly, 4 mana, tap, exile it, return to the battlefield, tapped all artifact, creature, enchantment, and land cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. So even if you're just buying back one thing, it could be your most important thing, or it could have that big turn where you sack a bunch of stuff, your Cathodians or whatever, to your Ashnod's Altar, make a ton of mana, use that to activate the pendant, bring them back, do it again, and then you can pop out an Eldrazi or whatever you want to sort of get that big explosive turn.
Yeah. And of course, if you don't want to focus all the way on artifact creatures, there's a lot of great 2-power creatures that like to die in art artifacts. One of my favorites is Sinister Concierge.
So many Capenna cards I just don't know exist.
This card's incredible. And the new Capenna precons had a lot more goodies in them than people gave him credit for. But Sinister Concierge says when it dies, you may exile it and put 3 time counters on it. If you do, exile up to 1 target creature and put 3 time counters on it. Each exiled card this way that doesn't have suspend gains suspend. So you can sacrifice this to copy an artifact creature, but you also exile it and another creature for 3 turns.
Which is sometimes the rest of the game.
Yeah. And if it's not the rest of the game, then you get your Sinister Concierge back and you can sack it again to casualty.
Yeah, that's cool. I like Suspend a lot, that card that just gets rid of a card with 3 time counters.
Busted, yeah.
Yeah, we saw a version of this with, there was like I forget what it was called, it was like Icy something, but you tap down the creature and put 3 stun counters on it in limited.
Yeah.
And you're just amazed. It's like that creature is just gone. And by the time it's back, it may not even be relevant anymore.
Absolutely.
Dogged Detective, another precon card from Capenna, 1 in the black for a 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, surveil 2. It's great ability there. But also, whenever an opponent draws their second card each turn, you may return the detective from your graveyard to your hand. So this is, again, coming back so you can play it again to sack it again. You're continuing to surveil. You're continuing to get through your deck.
Bloodghast is a 2/1 that likes to die and comes back when you play lands. Jadar makes 2/2 black zombies with Decayed that recur every turn. Also 2/2, so you can sack them to Decayed. Lagomos, Hand of Hatred, makes 2/1s that you sacrifice at your next end step, but those are great to sacrifice for casualty as well.
Yeah, and then I like Puppeteer Click because it comes in, you can put a creature card from the graveyard onto the battlefield, and then you could potentially sack that. But also, the Puppeteer Click, when it dies, it persists. It does it again.
There you go.
So you're gonna need a lot of food to make this sort of deck tick, because again, you need things to sacrifice to really get it going.
This is some interesting tech that you put in here. It's Twinning Staff and Errant Street Artist.
Copy time.
It says, if you would copy a spell 1 or more times, instead copy it that many times plus an additional time. You may choose new targets for the additional copy. There's more, but this is what we're talking about. An Errant says 1 in a blue, tap, copy, target, spell you control that wasn't cast. You may choose new targets for the copy. Casualty copies the spell on the stack, not the permanent on the battlefield.
Yep.
So it does work with Twinning Staff and Errant, even though it's copying permanents. And you would typically think of these for instants and sorcery decks.
Yeah, so you just get another one. So instead of 1 copy, you get 2.
Seems good.
Seems good.
Also, you can copy Twinning Staff with your commander.
That's right. You could play Twinning Staff and copy. I didn't even think about that. That's terrifying. Okay, let's talk about some really quick synergies here. Artifact Creature Synergy. There's cards like Canoptic Spider. That's a 5-mana 4/4. Whenever another non-token artifact creature or vehicle enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. You're probably going to want ways to just keep your hand filled. Again, you're both sacrificing creatures and trying to cast them, so your hand's going to empty out pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And then Research Thief is whenever artifact creatures deal combat damage, you draw a card. It's also a flash flyer artifact creature, which I really like because it means you could cast this on another turn and allow you to use the ability to copy the Research Thief, because you can, again, only use Ashad's ability once per turn.
Yeah. Flash goes a long way in this deck, and that's relevant to this next category of cards that have Flash, because they let you copy it not just on your turn.
Yay.
Ancient Stone Idol is a 10-mana 12/12 with Flash. Costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature. It also has Trample, and when it dies, you make a 6/12 construct token with Trample.
Yeah.
So it's great to make 2 of. It's absolutely huge. You can cast it on your opponent's turn and get even more with Ashad.
Yeah, imagine you end step before your turn, copy an Ancient Stone Idol and have 24 attacking power the next turn.
Tap. They're like,
Yeah. And then Renari, Merchant of Marvels, says you may cast dragon spells and artifact spells as though they had Flash. So again, the Flash allows you to just cast more spells and then get more of those casualty triggers out of the way. Same thing with Shimmermere.
What I like about Shimmermere is he's also, like, both Renari and Shimmermere are 2/2s.
Yeah.
But you could copy the Shimmermere with Casualty, and then you have a spare Shimmermere to Casualty away later.
Ooh.
See?
Yeah, this is also a deck, if you build it for all enter the battlefield abilities, you might want to play Panharmonicon. If you're really going the Flash route, then you can do Leyline of Anticipation as well as Vidal Canary. But all...
Panharmonicon Legendary?
No.
You can copy that, too.
Yeah. I think
that
it's just
seems
a regular
sweet.
Artifact. Everyone's got a Panharmonicon in their house.
Ashad's one of my favorite commanders that we're talking about today. I think there's some really neat stuff going on in here.
It will just take time for you to set up, because Ashad, it does cost a decent amount of mana.
4.
It's 4 and it's 3 colors. And a lot of the cards we talked about are 4 mana and up. So you want a lot of good ramp in that kind of deck.
Okay, the next commander we are talking about today is also a baddie. It's Missy.
Missy!
3, a blue, a black, and a red, so 6 mana altogether for a legendary Time Lord Rogue. She's a 4/5. It says, whenever another non-artifact creature dies, return it to the battlefield under your control, face down, and tapped.
Whoa.
It's a 2/2 Cyberman artifact creature. Then, at the beginning of your next end step, each opponent faces a villainous choice.
Ooh, yes.
Each artifact creature you control deals 1 damage to that opponent, or you draw a card and chaos ensues.
What does chaos ensues mean again?
It is only relevant if you're playing Plane Chase, which if you're really into the Doctor Who decks, they all come with Plane Chase cards, so you easily could. But most of the time, that's not going to do anything.
Yeah, but just drawing a card or having all your artifact creatures deal 1 damage to the opponent, I think for the most part in the early game, they're going to take the damage, and in the late game, they are definitely going to let you start drawing cards.
Yeah, that's an interesting question of like how many artifacts do you start being like, you can take the card?
Yeah, I think
6?
like 5 and up.
5 and up, you're like, you can have a card.
Yeah, but if I'm at 40, I'll take that 5 all day long.
All day. All right, so there's a lot of things going on the Missy card. It's whenever another non-artifact creature dies, that doesn't matter if it's a token. That doesn't matter. Well, it does matter if it's a token because it doesn't come back as a 2/2 because the card can't come back. But it doesn't matter if you control it.
Yeah.
So there's one version of this deck where you just try and kill as many creatures as possible to make as many Cybermen as possible.
Yeah, and then you get all these 2/2s.
And the easiest way to do that is with Edict effects.
Yeah, so that will definitely do it. It'll get rid of 1 creature on everyone's board, should they have one. Merciless Executioner is the classic sort of, there's tons of cards.
Fleshbag Marauder, Plague Crafter, Demon's Disciple. It goes and goes and goes. But when these come in, you sack something, each player sacrifices something, and hypothetically, you could get 4 Cybermen out of that if they don't have artifact creatures.
Yeah, that's
or
intense.
tokens.
Super intense.
Yeah. So there's a lot of pressure there. That is like a Braids deck, Braids Arisen Nightmare.
Yep. Yeah.
At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, or enchantment, and then you force your opponents to either...
or Planeswalker. There's a lot of things you can say.
Planeswalker. Gosh, it keeps going. And then your opponents get the option to sack something. If they don't, you get to draw cards.
Yeah,
so
and they lose
pressures their permanence.
Yeah, and you could play the very awful Grave Pact type permanents as well. But
sounds awful.
Yeah, don't do that. Those cards are really annoying.
What I don't like about this plan is not only is it super annoying, but your commander's 6 mana and it doesn't do anything until your commander's on the battlefield.
Yeah,
so you have to get your 6 mana commander on the battlefield, then you start playing your 3 drops. Isn't great. But then it's also just sort of brutally grindy.
Yeah. You could also sort of do one-sided board wipes. You have Consume the Meek, which only kills creatures with mana cost 3 or less. Bonfire of the Damned goes after 1 player. Chandra's Ignition with just your commander means you might get every single creature on the board.
Yeah.
And then
get a bunch of Cybermen off of that.
Yeah, and like Crippling Fear. There's a lot of cards that say like opponents can creatures get -2/-2, or certain creature types do. Yeah. So there's lots of ways to have one-sided board wipes in black and these colors specifically.
Yep. Once your commander is on the board, then you clean things up and get a ton of Cybermen for yourself.
Yep.
There is also a very weird build of this. So because Missy says whenever another non-artifact creature dies, return it to the battlefield under your control, face down and tapped. If the creature that died is a morph or mega morph creature, you could flip it back up. Which means that you could sack your own morph creatures. If they're sack your own morph creatures, they turn into Cybermen.
Actually, they could be face down too.
Yeah, if they're face down, either way, they're gonna turn into your Cybermen, and then you could flip them back up again. Which does mean that you get these sort of creatures that are free to sacrifice as long as you can pay the cost to flip them back up again.
I think that's definitely the world you want to get into.
This deck is wild and very difficult to play. There's a lot of strange rules when it comes to morph, but there's some very cool stuff as well. So let's start with some of the highlights. Grim Horror Specs is probably going to be one of the best morph creatures in the deck.
Oh, yeah.
It says whenever another non-token creature you control dies, draw a card.
So very good for just edicting all around. But when you have to sack it itself, it gets to be morphed for just 1 black, which is really good. Flip
it right back up. The cheaper the morph cost in this deck, the better.
Yeah. Gift of Doom is a pretty fun one. It's an enchantment, and it enchants a creature, giving it Death Touch and Indestructible. And it says morph, sacrifice another creature. So you can actually sack a creature and cast it for 3 mana face down. No, I'm sorry.
Just sacrificing a creature?
Yeah, sorry. When you morph it, you sack a creature. You can cast it as a face down for 2/2 for 3. And when it turns face up, you get to put it onto a creature.
So this probably goes on Missy. It gives
Yeah.
you like a 3-mana creature and a sack outlet, and it protects your 6-mana commander that you're really building around.
Yeah.
Feels like it does a lot.
Stratus Dancer counters targets or instants with its Megamorph ability, which is just brutal. Willbender is the classic. What's that morph? It's a Willbender.
Yeah,
it
probably.
Redirects a single spell or ability with another target.
Kadena Silencer, when it's turned face up, counter all abilities your opponents control. And remember, these control ones are so powerful because you can flip them up, counter a thing, sacrifice them, they turn face down, and then you can turn them up again.
Yeah.
As long as you have the mana up.
That's wild.
There are other ways to flip these Cybermen over, even if they don't necessarily have morph or megamorph. My favorite one is Skirk Alarmist. This is a 1 in a
Sound
red.
the alarm. It has haste for a 1/2.
Yeah.
And you tap it, turn target face down creature you control face up. At the end of turn, sacrifice
And
it.
it goes back face down.
Whoa.
Pretty cool.
Your opponents will know, by the way, which one it is. I think
Yeah.
it's not supposed to be hidden information, so you can't do a 3-card
do like a
Monty.
cup thing,
Which one is it this time? Don't attack me. I'll block with this one.
That's a deep dwelling, of course. You can blink the Cybermen and they come back under your control.
Yep, under your control very specifically. Yeah, a creature you control to your control.
Have to be careful. Yeah, Ghostly Flicker says under your control. Not all Flicker spells say they come back under your control. Many say under their owner's control, which you don't really want to do.
Yeah, and if you don't want to do this stuff, you could just sack them as well. If you have your own Ashnod's Altar, your Goblin Bombardment. So you can just kill them after you get them for free pings or whatever it is.
River Kelpie is really good in this deck. It says whenever River Kelpie or another permanent enters the battlefield from a graveyard, draw a card. And whenever a player casts a spell from a graveyard, draw a card. It also has Persist.
Yeah, very good.
Whenever a creature dies, they come back as a Cyberman. They will trigger your River Kelpie.
Yeah, I like that.
Now, predictably, there's some combos with this commander because there are a number of morph creatures that have free morph costs.
Yeah, well, free as in you don't have to pay mana for it and you can repeat it. So Ruthless Ripper, the morph cost is just revealing a black card in your hand. And when it's turned face up, target player loses 2 life. Dragon's Eye Savant is revealing a blue card in your hand. And when it's turned face up, you look at target opponent's hand. And then Horde Ambusher is revealing a red card, and then it says when it's turn face up, target creature can't block this turn. So if you have a sack outlet, these basically can get revealed infinite number of times.
Right. So the black one's obviously the best because you can drain somebody's life when it's flipped up. And then all you need is Missy, Ruthless Ripper, and a free sack outlet.
Right.
Because it's a payoff all in itself. You sacrifice it, it becomes a Cyberman. You reveal a black card, it flips up, you drain somebody for 2 life. Sack it, it becomes a face down card again.
Flip it up.
Flip it up. You can reveal the same black card over and over again.
So,
the blue and red ones, you can do that loop. There just isn't necessarily a payoff built in.
Yeah. You can look at everyone's hand. You can
make it so no creatures can block.
It's kind of a win condition, but yeah, Ruthless Ripper is definitely the winning one there.
But I mean, it's easy to find a payoff for infinite dies or infinite ETBs.
Oh, yeah,
or
that's great.
Leave
That's
the battlefield. Like you
Totally.
could like Blood Artist,
or
like a Pitiless Plunderer, Mayhem Devil. All of these will pay off you sacrificing something infinite times.
Yeah, that's great. Missy, pretty powerful in that case. Now, because morphing doesn't use the stack. If you are doing the Ruthless Ripper thing, the only time that you can really respond is when Missy goes, hey, a creature died, it's going to reanimate and come back to my battlefield as a tapped Cyberman. That is, at that point, you can kill Missy, and then the chain will stop, because then they can't have it come back, flip it over. But you can't respond to the flip, notably.
Yep.
So when it gets flipped, it gets flipped. It does not use the stack.
Yep. It's a pretty neat loop. It's very confusing. It makes this deck sort of interesting to look at and play against. But keep an eye out for the morph creatures, particularly the free morph creatures. A simpler way to build this deck is just putting a lot of artifact creatures on the board and being like, do I get to draw a card?
Yeah, because Cybermen are artifact creatures, 2/2s.
Yeah, I mean, but if you just put like a mere battle sphere on the battlefield, so like right now you have 5 artifact creatures all in a box, and you're like, would you like to take 5 or do I get to draw a card? Would you like to take 5 or do I? And you blink Mere Battlesphere or you make a bunch of Thopters or something, then you're forcing your opponents to give you the 3 cards. And in that deck, Missy just becomes the top end card draw engine.
Yeah. At the end of it, it just is like, are you going to die to Missy or are you going to let me draw cards and keep going forward? And Grixis is a great shell for artifacts.
Yeah, for sure. So I could see that being a clearer build as well.
Yeah, so you're just like creating a bunch of tokens or like Hangerback Walker tokens or Saheeli Sublime Artificer tokens and just making it so that no one wants to take that damage because each opponent has to make that villainous choice. Villainous choice.
Also,
yes.
if you're playing with Plane Chase, then you get to chaos will ensue a lot.
Yeah,
kind of
totally. And then I just wanted to do one last Artifacts Matter. You could have like Monumental Corruption, which is 3 black target player draws X cards, loses X life, or X the number of artifacts you control.
Seems good.
So let's say
spell.
they're like, I'm at 15, fine, I'll go down to 7. You're like, cool, Monumental Corruption, kill you.
Yeah.
Or Monumental Corruption myself, draw a ton of cards. Mirrorworks allows you to make pay 2 and copy non-token artifacts. And then Gonti's Ether Heart is nuts.
Oh, yeah.
When Gonti's Ether Heart or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you get 2 energy counters, and then you can pay, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to take an extra turn with it. Yeah.
Seems
and that's
doable.
Definitely doable. And then you got the Mystic Forge, blah, 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 blah.
Cool.
Cool.
I mean, Missy's definitely powerful. She's 6 mana, so you're going to pay for it, but I totally get what this deck is doing.
I look forward to the Missy Elliott altar that someone inevitably is going to do.
Hey, that's fun.
Okay, next up we got River Song. This card was previewed pretty early in the Doctor Who cycle, and a lot of people had a lot to say about it. 1 a blue and a red for a 2/2 human Time Lord rogue. It's a kind of a good guy, yeah. It's a rogue though.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
And the fun ability up the top is you draw cards from the bottom of your library rather than the top. So reverse that around, me in reverse, Bad Wolf. And then the second ability, whenever an opponent scries, surveils, or searches their library, put a 1/1 counter on River Song. Then River Song deals damage to that player equal to its power. So that is likely not to be as relevant.
It's tough. I mean, like we're going to talk about ways to get your opponents to search and scry, but it is not easy.
You can't force your opponent to surveil. I looked for a long time to see if that existed.
Nope.
But yeah, fetch lands will do it, tutoring will do it, but again, it's only going to do damage equal to River Song's power, and it goes up by 1, so it's like 3 damage, 4 damage. Not really the game ender here. Let's just get out of the way. What is the power of this card? It is called Time Stream Navigator.
Yep.
So this is 1 in the blue for a 1/1 human power wizard with Ascend. You get Say's Blessing if you control 10 or more permanents. And then if you do, you can activate its ability, which is 2 blue tap, put Time Stream Navigator on the bottom of its owner's library, take an extra turn after this one. So it goes on the bottom of your library. The next turn, Missy draws from the bottom of your library. You can play it again. If you have haste, if you have any number of different ways to do it in blue and red, you can...
Or if you just have just a way to draw it that turn, then you can replay it, take your next turn, do it again.
Do it again, yeah.
Time Stream Navigator will give you infinite turns pretty easily with River Song, but that's not the only way to go infinite.
Yeah, there's a couple of cards that love to put stuff on the bottom of your library.
Yeah, there's tons of examples of this, and we're not going to go through all of the cards that do it, but they have activated abilities that say some amount, in this case, 2: put target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. This is Epitaph Golem, which is 5 mana 3/5.
Transplant Theorist, which is a 4 mana 2/4.
Soldevi Digger is a 2 mana artifact.
Yeah, probably the best one is Soldevi Digger.
I would think so.
But here's what you do. You are now drawing from the bottom of your library, so you cast a Time Warp. Any extra turn spell. The next turn, you draw it from the bottom of your library, and you cast it. And then you use any of these cards to put on the bottom of your library, and then rinse and repeat. Yeah. So it's a little mana intensive. So Soldevi Digger allows you to do it for basically like 7 mana with the Time Warp after the first time you cast Soldevi Digger. But yeah, you'll have all the extra mana. You'll have every single extra turn in the world. And more importantly, you're not going to deck out because you're always drawing the same card over and over again.
Yeah. It's a little bit clunkier of a loop. It's 3-card combo, but still extremely doable with River Song in the command zone.
Yep.
So what does this deck actually look like is an interesting question. I mean, what does it mean to be drawing off the bottom of your library?
Well, a lot of different abilities on cards and stuff like Scry actually change how they work fundamentally to either be better or worse or from your position. But there's a lot of cards that basically let you start stacking the bottom of your library in ways that you might think are unprecedented. Like Experimental Augury. It's 1 in the blue for an instant. You look at the top 3 cards of your library, 1 of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order.
Aha!
And then you proliferate.
It also says proliferate, which works with the counters on her. If
that's right.
Your opponent has scried, surveilled, or
search their library.
Impulse does a similar thing. Looks at the top 4, gives you a card. You tuck the rest in the order that you are interested in them.
Yep. Dig Through Time
Yep.
allows you to do the same thing. Pretty much just put cards on the bottom of your library in any order.
One that I thought was really neat in this deck is Brainstorm.
Oh,
because
yeah.
the way that Riversong is worded, it's you draw 3.
Oh, from the
so
bottom
you draw
of your
3
deck.
from the bottom, and then Brainstorm says put 2 on top. So you sort of like tuck 2.
Yeah.
So you
'cause
draw
you're
3 from
not
the bottom and
drawing
you
them.
put 2 back. So it's different. You can't hide stuff with Brainstorm, but it means you're not going to get Brainstorm locked as long as you have Riversong.
Yeah, you won't get those cards you put away because you don't want them again.
Right.
Yeah, they instantly go to the top of your library and you're still drawing from the bottom. That's really cool.
Yeah, it becomes a 1 mana draw 3 discard 2, which is really powerful.
Yep.
top 2 anyway.
I found this one, the Temporal Anchor.
Oh, this one's
3
wild.
blue, blue, blue at the beginning of your upkeep. Scry 2. So Scry takes on a whole new meaning because you're never drawing from the top of your library. So if you Scry 2 and you're like, I don't want these cards, you keep them on top of your library. But if you want one or more of them, you put them on the bottom and you get to choose what order. But it also says whenever you choose to put one or more cards on the bottom of your library while scrying, exile that many cards from the bottom of your library. And then during your turn, you can play cards exile with the Temporal Anchor. So you can just sort of draw extra cards, basically.
Yeah, it's wild. Scroll Rack is neat in this deck too. You're going to use it a little bit differently because you're exile any number of cards from your hand face down. Put that many cards from the top of your library into your hand. That's a put trigger, not a draw. So you do take them off the top. Then look at the exiled cards and put them on top of your library in any order. So you're not setting up your draws like you would similarly.
You're just going through your deck faster.
Yeah, so you're just like, I don't want any of these cards. I'm going to put three here, and I'm going to replace it with these 3.
It's
but
great.
they're gone.
Yeah, a lot of times people play Scroll Rack incorrectly, and they're like, oh no, I accidentally just set up my draws for the next 8 turns, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
This is a great deck for it because it just puts it away.
Yep.
Teferi's Puzzle Box, at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player puts the cards in their hand on the bottom of their library in any order, then draws that many cards. So this does not work with the deck because you're just putting the cards away and you're drawing them back.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like it keeps your opponent's hands ever changing, but
it
your
makes yours
hand
basically
stays
stay
the
the same,
same.
yeah.
So if there's some sort of like Teferi Puzzle Box lock, I don't know.
It definitely can mess with opponents' plans. If
Yeah.
you just want to use this to cause chaos and keep things the same for yourself, then that's the way to do it.
It certainly does that. Like we said, there's a lot of ways to recur stuff from the graveyard to the bottom of your library. Conjurer's Bauble is very good. It's a 1 mana artifact that you sack it. You put up to 1 target card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library and then draw a card. So you draw that card that you'd put on the bottom of your library.
Oh, very cool.
So it's a 1 mana colorless like regrowth
Yeah,
that you can use whenever.
pretty good.
Yeah, Junk Troller is a 4 mana 0/6 with a tap ability that says put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. So that one's free to use, but you have to have it in play for a turn for it to
It's
work.
also kind of graveyard hate, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Telgilad Stylus, tap, put target permanent you own on the bottom of your library. So this is a way to protect any of your permanents and just draw it the next turn. Sort of like tucks it away to the, basically, if you were drawing normally to the top, in this case, the bottom.
Yeah, it's also stuff that you own, which is bizarre. So if somebody steals something of yours, you can
right.
be like, put that on top. It's an interesting little techie card. This next card is bizarre, and I'm not really sure. I mean, it's good in the deck. It's Proteus Staff.
It's really good.
It's 3 mana artifact, 2 and a blue. Put target creature on the bottom of its owner's library. That creature's controller reveals cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals a creature card. The player puts that card into play and the rest on the bottom of his or her library in any order. Play this ability only anytime you would play a sorcery. It ends up being like replace a creature with another creature and you scry a bunch.
Yeah, you could scry like 10.
Like some amount.
Yeah, because you are going to have to draw those cards.
Yeah, and you
In
do
that
replace
order.
the creature. It's definitely strange. And depending on how many creatures you run in the deck, if you only run the one, for example,
Time Stream Navigator.
then you can stack your entire deck.
That's sweet. That's the combo.
That sounds like a nightmare, but it's like a complicated doomsday
Yeah, there you go.
type situation.
You do have the ability again in blue to tutor up the Proteus
Yeah.
staff as well, so you can go that direction.
If that's your plan, make sure you know what you're looking for. Don't make your opponents sit there while you figure out what 5 go on the top of your library.
Yeah.
Have a plan.
Okay, let's talk about the most irrelevant part of Willow's text, River's text here. Sorry.
Man, this is tough because there's not a lot of good ways to force this to happen. So building your deck too much around it is difficult. But
it's a bad idea.
you can put counters on her with Agitator Ant. Will make her bigger faster so that if they do scry or tutor while she's on the battlefield, then they'll take more damage.
Yeah, and then other players' creatures get goaded if they decide to add the counters, which is kind of fun.
Yep. And you need a little bit of defense in this deck because you don't have a ton of creatures going on.
Yep.
You could also put equipment on it. Hero's Blade, Black Blade Reforged. These are going to make River really big to discourage your opponents from scrying or searching their library.
It also may just encourage them to kill River as well. So keep that in
too.
mind.
The scariest equipment you can put on her is Crafted Exoskeleton.
Gross, because it gets infect and River's dealing that damage.
Yeah.
Okay, now how do we force people to search their library? Thing is, you can't.
There's
really not a single one that makes them do it. It's
not in blue and red. It's always May.
Yeah.
So the cleanest one is Cleansing Wildfire.
Destroy target land. Its controller may search their library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle their library, and you get to draw a card.
But if this would kill them, you're just spending a card to destroy one of their lands.
Yeah. And
because they're like, okay, I guess I won't search.
Yeah, there's a lot of cards. Geomancer's Gambit does the same thing, blowing up lands. From the Ashes, I think, is going to force people to, because it's destroy all non-basics. For each land destroyed this way, its controller may search their library for a basic land and put it on the battlefield, and then they shuffle.
So then now they kind of have to search.
Yeah, because if you're doing, it's basically mass land destruction.
You're
destroying all non-basics.
That's the weird thing about this, is the easiest way to make them search is by blowing up their lands. And if they don't search, then you're just stone raining your opponents, and they just have a River Song land destruction deck.
Yeah.
Like you could use the things that tuck cards from the bottom of your library and be like, I'm gonna Cleansing Wildfire you again, and I'll tuck it, and I'll Cleansing Wildfire you again. And that's your deck. Cool.
Yeah. I don't think that's a great way to go. And it's gonna just make people angry.
Right? That doesn't seem particularly fun. And if you do it, then you're like, I deal 5 damage.
Yeah. Now you do have Noble Benefactor. When it dies, everyone gets to tutor, Demonic Tutor specifically, and then Boldware Heavyweights, which is a card I run in my Beamtown Bullies deck. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent may search their library for a creature and just put it into play. This could just be straight up asking for trouble, but it does allow them to search their library. And maybe they'll be like, fine, I'll take 15 damage if I can get my, Ulamog out or whatever.
And then you get your Time Stream Navigator, I guess.
Yeah, and you kind of win.
Yeah.
Well, it's each opponent, so you're not labeled.
That's true. That's true.
That's why it's good in Beam Temple, is because
you get the tutor.
And on 1v1, you're the only one tutoring.
Right.
But then you got Field of Ruin, Ghost Quarter. These are all destructo lands that allow opponents to replace the land that gets found, right?
Field of Ruin does force them to search. It's the only way I found that's not May. Field of Ruin is like, you must.
Nice. Thank goodness we did. We found it.
Yeah. And we looked at ways to force your opponents to scry and surveil, and they are not good, and you shouldn't put them in your deck.
Yeah, this first one is awful.
There's an enchantment that's called Eyes Everywhere. It's 2 and a blue. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1, and you can pay 6, 5 and a blue, to exchange control of Eyes Everywhere and target non-land permanent. Activate this ability only anytime you would cast a sorcery. So you can give it to your opponent, and then they scry on their upkeep.
Or hope they don't pay 5 in the blue to steal something else.
Yeah, they will.
They will.
But it's at sorcery speed, so you do get 1 scry out of it.
Yeah. It's kind of cool that you can kind of steal their best non-land permanent to a degree. So there is some upside to playing this card.
And you'll get 1 trigger off a river.
Opponent's like, I need to give this to another opponent because my river's going to kill them and not me. So then they throw it to someone else.
What they do, right, is they just
pass it around the table and everyone dies to it.
Or they just give you the Eyes Everywhere and take river, and then you got nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's a good point. Give her Shroud. Give her
yeah, there you go.
And then there's Mere Custodian, Eager Construct. When that enters the battlefield, scry 2, then each opponent may scry 1. Eager Construct is each opponent may scry 1 when it enters the battlefield, or each player.
Yeah.
I think early in the game, people were like, whatever, I'll take 2 damage, 3 damage.
Scry,
I'll take a scry, whatever. But later in the game, again, you don't want River to become a target.
Right.
When you do, it's bad. Another way to force people to do it, though, is Model of Unity. Whenever players finish voting, you and each opponent who voted for a choice you voted for may scry 2.
Doesn't force them.
Yeah, you're right. Doesn't force them. And then you have to build a voting deck, too.
Yeah, I think with River, you're playing around the bottom of the library thing, and you're hoping people incidentally search and scry.
Yeah.
You could put in your Boldware Heavyweights and do sort of a crazy group hug situation, but
that's way too risky.
That sounds really. I mean, it's probably super fun, but it's definitely like the payoff isn't quite there.
Well, playing Boldware Heavyweights and being like, cool, everyone take 2 damage or 4 damage or whatever from River is like, oh, rough, dude. I don't know about that.
It's crazy. And like once she's like a 10-10 or something like that, and the damage is lethal, and you're like, I play Boldware Heavyweights, people are going to be like, Okay,
Aw,
don't
shucks.
search.
Yeah, don't search. Cool. Now what?
Yeah, like
I guess the deck that would have this happen is if you're doing Field of Ruin because it forces everyone to do it.
so you got to
and
like
then
keep replaying Field of
you
Ruin.
put it back on the bottom of your library and you're drawing it and playing it
So
during your infinite turns. I
guess you play Field of Ruin. You force everybody. Okay, so you like.
Don't
Crucible
build
or
around this part of River Song.
It's tough. It's really tough.
The top part of her text is powerful enough.
It's cool.
Because it's a 2-card combo with Time Stream Navigator.
Yeah, but infinite turns. Ugh. Okay.
What, not fun?
This next commander is sweet. It's the Beast.
Deathless Prince. Yeah, they finally made a card.
I saw this episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did.
Cool.
It's cool.
They finally modeled a card after me. I'm so excited.
The Beast.
The Beast.
2 black-red for a 6/6 demon. What? When you cast this spell, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap it. It gains menace and haste until end of turn.
Nice.
The Beast enters the battlefield tapped with 6 stun counters on it. And whenever a creature deals combat damage to its owner, untap the Beast and draw a card.
Yeah, so combat damage dealing to its owner. That means if you steal someone else's creature and you hit them with it, that is a creature dealing combat damage to its owner.
Right. So you remove a counter and you draw a card and you're one step closer to having your Beast.
Yeah, I don't care so much about the Beast being a 6/6. That's the least of my concerns in this deck.
Yeah, you just want to draw the cards and hit them with their stuff.
First off, it's a 4-mana threaten effect, which means you just steal something when it comes on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can play a lot of sweet black-red spells that like to congratulate you for doing threatened effects. Or can threaten things, like Olivia Voldaren. Pays 1 and a red to ping a creature and makes them a vampire, and then 3 black to permanently gain control of that creature as long as you control Olivia.
Whoosh.
This is a new one.
Decadent Dragon's great in this deck. The adventure Expensive Taste is exile the top 2 cards of target opponent's library face down. You may look at it and play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. So it'll draw you 2 cards. If you hit a creature in them, then you can hit them with it. But it's also a 4/4 flying trample dragon that when it attacks you, make a treasure token.
Yep. Gonti, Lord of Luxury, will exile the top 4 cards of an opponent's library, and then you can cast those cards. One of those cards, you choose them.
Yeah, go find a creature.
Find a creature, yeah. And Gonti's just great in general.
Or you just do a bunch of mass threaten effects where you take as many creatures as possible.
Yep. Captivating Crew is a repeatable one on the creature, but you got Mass Mutiny, where you gain control of up to 1 target creature for each player. Mob Rule, where you gain control of creatures with mana value greater or lower, less than 4 or 3. Zealous Conscripts. Cards like this are just classic, very powerful. This you can steal a Soul Ring with, which is kind of fun.
Zealous Conscripts, I think, is one of the most underrated commander cards of all time.
It's so powerful.
Like, you could steal a Bolas' Citadel. You could steal... I've seen people steal Planeswalkers and ult them. Like, Zealous Conscripts is unbelievable.
Yeah. You also have Gisa, Glorious Resurrector. So if you steal and then sack the creature that you're stealing, it's one of the big things to do. But more importantly, if Gisa is just out, anytime a creature an opponent controls would die, it gets exiled, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, you put those cards on the battlefield under your control. So they gain Decayed, but it's going to give you them. It's going to let you steal them.
This one's pretty cool. It's Might Makes Right. 5 and a red for an enchantment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control each creature on the battlefield with the greatest power, gain control of target creature an opponent controls until end of turn. Untap that creature, gains haste until end of turn. You have a 6/6 naturally.
Yeah.
So not all the time, but often you will have the highest power creature on the battlefield, and then you can threaten it and do your draws.
Do your stuff. More ways to steal creatures is out of the graveyard. So Reanimate does it from any graveyard. Virtue of Persistence is a new one from Wilds of Eldraine. At the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature card from a graveyard under the battlefield under your control. Grave Betrayal. Whenever a creature you don't control dies, it returns to your battlefield with a 1/1 counter, and it makes it a black zombie.
You just played this one on extra turns.
Yeah.
It's Arvanox, the Mind Flail.
The Mind Flail.
Otherwise known as the Mind Flayer. It's 4 black for a 9/9 horror. It isn't a creature unless you control 3 or more permanents you don't own. Hopefully you do. That's the whole plan.
Yeah.
At the beginning of your end step, exile the bottom card of each opponent's library face down. As long as those cards remain exiled, you may look at them. You may cast cast permanent spells from among them, and you may spend mana as though they were mana any color to cast those spells.
Yeah, so you're taking cards from your opponents. Hopefully the creatures. Limb Duel the Necromancer. When creatures an opponent controls dies, you can play one in the black and you return it to play under your control. Geth, Lord of the Vault, will steal things right out of the graveyard. And then it's just about sacking them. This is like the classic black-red thing, which is active trees in your creature, and then I attack with it, and then before it goes back to it end of turn, I sacrifice it to my Phyrexian altar, my Ashad's altar, my Altar of Dementia.
Altar of Dementia is great, because then you could reanimate something out of their graveyard.
Oh, yeah. And then you can also sack it to your Viscera Seer, or your Goblin Bombardment, or maybe you have Deadly Dispute or Village Rites to draw some cards with it, or Nasty End. Ooh.
Nasty End's sweet. You could steal their commander, sack it, draw 3 cards.
Yeah, I think stealing people's commanders and sacking it is one of the rudest things you can do. I also like Grab the Reins, which is a haste threaten effect, but also you can entwine it for the second effect, or just do the second effect, which is sack a creature, Grab the Reins, deals damage equal to that creature's power to target creature or player. So like fling effects are just as good.
It's one of the only instant speed threaten effects too.
Yeah, totally. And then in order to draw the card, you need to have the creature actually hit, because you could steal a 1/1 and then they just chump block it or whatever. So you're going to need some unblockable. So you've got Whisper Silk Cloak will do it. Key to the City will do it. Wings of Hubris, which is a fun one. It's a 2-mana card with 1 to equip. Equipped creature has flying. And then you can sack the Wings of Hubris. Equipped creature can't be blocked this turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So before it gets back, you lose the Wings of Hubris because you got Hubris, but you also kill the creature you stole.
Pretty sweet.
And then you got the Sonic Screwdriver.
On flavor.
All of the Doctor Who decks have this, I think, except for the villain
Except
one.
for the bad guys, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a Sonic Screwdriver.
But this is a card that taps to add 1 mana. You can pay 1, tap it, untap another artifact, pay 2, tap it, scry 1, or pay 3, tap it. Target creature can't be blocked this turn.
Got him.
Got him.
I like this card a lot, the Shadow Alley Denizen. I'm not sure how creature heavy this deck is, but it's a single black for a vampire rogue. Whenever another black creature enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gains Intimidate until end of turn.
Yep.
So you can, when you cast another creature, it will give the creature Intimidate. It gives you a little bit more.
Yeah, speaking
evasion.
of Intimidate and Fear, a file like Wisps grants fear to creatures, and you draw a card. Shizo Death's Storehouse also grants fear, and that's pseudo unblockable.
Yeah, fear's quite good.
And then this card goes really well in the 99 of a bunch of decks that like stealing stuff already. So Marchesa the Black Rose already wants to steal cards, dethrone them, sack them, keep control of them. Mr. Orfeo the Boulder just doubles the power of stuff. Ziatora sacrifices permanents at your end step, so you can steal stuff and sack it.
It's also good to fling.
Yeah, Riveteer's Ascendancy loves to have stuff in your graveyard that you're returning back. And then the Horus Heresy is a cool saga from Warhammer that cares about creatures that you control but don't own.
Okay. Lot of sweet Doctor Who commanders that we've talked about. We've got even more to come.
No way.
Including, some of the ones that have been most talked about so far. So stick around. After a few words from our sponsors, we'll get more into Doctor Who commanders.
Man, I love this time of year.
Me too. It's spooky season. The perfect time to brew up that zombie or spirit deck.
Yeah, Halloween is great. But fall is also the season of value because our longtime sponsor, RAYCON, they're having their big anniversary sale. To thank everyone who's shown them support in the past 6 years, RAYCON is offering 20% off everything on their site with select products up to 40% off.
We both use Raycons all the time, especially their everyday earbuds. They have that perfect in-ear fit and 32-hour battery life that make them great for listening all day long, whether I'm flying to a con or just chilling at home.
And there's just no other brand that offers the same premium audio quality at Raycon's reasonable prices. Plus, this past year, they expanded their entire business with the introduction of Raycon Home and Raycon PowerTech. So whether you need earbuds, speakers, or even an air purifier, don't miss out on the anniversary sale value.
These deals are so good, it's scary. Get it?
Yes. Yep, I got it. We all got it.
Celebrate Raycon turning 6 with their biggest sale of the year going on now.
Hurry now to buyraycon.com/command and use code BIRTHDAY to get 20 to 40% off site-wide. That's code BIRTHDAY at buyraycon.com/command to score 20 to 40% off. Again, buyraycon.com/command. The Command Zone has grown a lot over the years. We started as a 2-person podcast, but now we're a full-grown business.
Still, we want to focus on magic, not get bogged down by e-commerce. And that's why we found the perfect business partner, Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. And whatever stage yours is at, Shopify is the only tool you need to start, run, and grow your business.
For a long time, we didn't have much merch ourselves because it's hard to manage the logistics. But Shopify helped us expand what we could offer to our fans by a lot. And they even made it easier to connect with and reward our patrons for supporting us all these years. Shopify puts you in control of every sales channel, whether it's in-person point of sale or online with e-commerce.
And once you've reached your audience, Shopify is the internet's best converting checkout to help you turn browsers into buyers.
Shopify powers millions of entrepreneurs of all sizes across the world, and their award-winning help is there to support success every step of the way.
This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/TCZ, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/TCZ to take your business to the next level today. Again, shopify.com/TCZ.
I think it might need more card draw.
Who are you talking to? Or is that just something you say?
Oh, no, I'm on a call with Jimmy. We're building a Chatterfang deck.
Ooh, I just added Toski. That should help, right?
Whoa, the card just showed up.
Yeah, with ARCHIDEKT, you can collaborate in real time from anywhere in the world.
Changes show up immediately. You don't even have to reload the page.
So it's perfect for brewing with a friend.
This is cool, but isn't Jimmy just upstairs?
Yeah, but I'm downstairs right now.
I ain't coming downstairs.
ARCHIDEKT is the best place to browse, brew, and playtest commander decks. Just go to archidekt.com/commandzone to get started.
That's ARCHIDEKT.com/commandzone.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. We just spent 5 minutes humming the Doctor Who theme song, and we're ready to engage with the next commander. It's the Face of Boe.
Love his face.
Yeah,
He's just a face.
It's just a face.
A really, really old face.
A Boe face at that. It's 1 and Jeskai, blue, red, and white for a 0/4 alien advisor. And you can tap it. You may cast a spell with suspend from your hand. If you do, pay its suspend cost rather than its mana cost. Activate only as a sorcery.
Okay. So we know suspend cards, they've got suspend time costs, and then they've got mana costs. So Soul Talisman says suspend 3 and then 1. With Boe, you just pay the 1, tap him, and now you have a Soul Ring. It's on the battlefield.
Yeah. And
pretty sweet.
Suspend is meant to make these cards not as powerful because they have to wait on suspend, and you have to find ways to get rid of the time counters, blah, blah, blah. So this is actually pretty powerful because you can cast a Lotus Bloom. Suspend cost is 0, so you can just tap Boe, pay 0, and then have a Black Lotus.
Nice.
Mox Tantalite is also suspend cost 0, and it's just a Mox. So you just tap of any color, yeah.
A lot of the time, they will take very powerful classic effects from Magic and turn it into a suspend spell, like we just talked about. Wheel of Fate is a Wheel of Fortune.
Yep.
It
suspend
is
cost
1 in a red for a suspend cost. Discard your hand, draw 7.
Inevitable Betrayal is bribery. Suspend cost is 1 blue, and you search your target the opponent's library for a creature and put it onto the battlefield. Ancestral Vision.
Sounds familiar?
Yeah, that's right. It says Ancestral Recall. Suspend 4 for a blue mana, or just a blue mana with Boe and draw 3 cards.
Banned in Commander, but not in Boe. It's Restore Balance.
Ugh, gross.
For a single white, each player chooses a number of lands they control equal to the number of lands controlled by the player who controls the fewest, then sacrifices the rest. Players sacrifice creatures and discard cards the same way.
Everyone will hate you. Don't do this.
Don't play Balance. It's banned for a reason.
Yeah, but the suspend version isn't because it's suspend 6 normally.
Yeah.
In this case, it's
but
suspend.
not with Boe.
Yeah, Bo's like, nah, let's Boe it out.
Yeah, let's Boe it out. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see like a Boe Balance deck that just makes me want to cry.
Yeah, and then I heard during the pandemic there was a Boe Burnham record as well that he just wrote.
There you go.
Yeah. There's a
Face
new
of Boe Burnham.
Face of Boe.
Boe Burnham's face in a jar.
That. Oh my gosh! If the editors do that and you see it on screen, 1, they are wasting their time. 2, I'm glad they did.
Like a pickled Boe Burnham.
Just, all wrinkly. Thinking about Instagram girls.
Oh, my God.
White girls Instagram. Okay, Ecstatic Beauty is a new card that was printed in the Doctor Who set. It's 2 and red for a sorcery, but it has to spend for 4 and a red, that for 1 red, and it says exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play those cards until end of turn, and then you put 4 time counters on each of those cards that has suspend. So if you've got a ton of suspend cards in your deck, then you could potentially get a lot off of this Ecstatic Beauty.
Yeah. Other than that, it's just impulse draw 3 for a single red with Boe.
Yep.
This is the most busted one in the whole deck. It's Heroes Remembered.
This card is so silly.
6 white. This for a sorcery that says you gain 20 life. But you only have to pay a single white as long as you have Boe on the battlefield. So you tap Boe, pay white, gain 20
Gain
life.
20, yeah. Normally it's suspend for 10 turns, which is never going to happen.
Yeah, 10 turns in Commander.
Yeah. Rousing Refrain's an interesting one. It's suspend for 1 and a red for 3 turns, or 3 time counters. Or it says 3 red for a sorcery, add red for each card in the target opponent's hand, and then until end of turn, you don't lose his mana as steps and phases end, and then you suspend it for 3. But 1 and a red to add 7 mana, maybe. Pretty good.
And then it sends itself back on suspend so you can get it that much mana later.
Yeah. You played this one in the Doctor Who episode. It triggered,
did.
What, one time? No, twice.
It's Inspiring Refrain. This one is exactly the same as Rousing Refrain. It's 2 and a blue to suspend it, but you draw 2 cards and then it goes away with 3 time counters on it.
How exciting. Or you pay it for 6.
Or you pay 6 and draw 2 cards and then 2 more in 3 turns.
Yeah. By the way, everyone's like, but you can only do this 1 time per turn. This kind of sucks, right? And you are correct. This is kind of sucky because even though these cards are like Reality Strobe, bounce something.
Bounce something every 3 turns.
Chronomantic Escape. Creatures can't attack you
every
until
3
your next
turns.
turn. Yeah. Greater Gargadon. Make a 9/7.
9/7 for a single red, Jimmy? That's good.
Yeah, it's not good.
It
Gargadon. 7/5 for 2 mana.
Sometimes with Trample for 2 mana.
Yeah. Atraxi Warden. Exile a tap creature for 2 mana.
But it's on a 6/6 flyer.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? You can only do it once per turn, so it makes the effect of it kind of less.
Yeah, I mean...
And you're also showing your plan to everyone because you're doing it only as a sorcery.
Gotta play Boe and at sorcery speed.
Yeah, what kind of advisor plays at sorcery speed?
Yeah, there's a lot of big things that you can cast for cheap. I honestly think that's the best win con on theme that this deck offers.
Yeah.
Is like the Star Whale is a new one. It's 1 and a blue for an 8/8 flying vigilance. Other creatures you control have ward 2. So if you can get that down, like if you have Boe on turn 3 and then you Star Whale on turn 4, that's a big threat on turn 4.
Yeah.
But it's just an 8/8 flyer, so you got to get moving.
Yeah, then you cast Balance.
Then you cast Balance.
No one can deal with it. Yeah, cards like Pardic Dragon, it's a 4/4 flying and fire breathing. But if you're going that route and you're playing all these suspend cards, you're going to need the classic suspend, remove counter cards that are present in any deck that has suspend.
Yeah, especially with these refrain cards, there's a number of them that go back on suspend. You're going to want to be able to speed up that clock.
Yeah, because once you cast it once with Boe, you can't like recast it from suspend.
No, you have to wait the 3 turns unless you do something like clock spinning, which is it's a single blue with buyback 3 for an instant. Choose a counter on target permanent or suspended card. Remove that counter from that permanent or put another one of those counters on it. So you can spend some mana, you can speed up the clock, you can draw those cards earlier, or you can make that mana sooner.
Joyra's Time Bug does a similar thing. The 10th Doctor allows you to time travel, which is removing suspend counters.
Removing or adding.
Or adding, yep. But that costs 7 mana to do so, which is a little rough. The Parting of the Ways, this is the Bad Wolf one. You get a time travel as well on this one. So
Yeah, there's a lot of time travel-y stuff in this deck that is probably going to go in there too. So Time Beetle allows you to time travel when it connects. It's a 1/1 with Skulk. I really liked this card. It's all of history all at once. I didn't get to cast it in the game, but it was 2 blue for a sorcery.
Oh, yeah.
It says time travel and then storm. So you could cast something with Boe, you could suspend it, and then you could time travel again, cast some other things, time travel multiple times, get it back off suspend if you have one of those like rousing refrain ones.
Yep.
Just gives you some control over time, which this deck is going to need.
Yeah, Face of Boe does not have haste, however, so you're going to want your 1,000-year elixirs, which also untaps creatures, and your Lightning Greaves, and then all the untappers are Minamo School at Water's Edge, Sting, the Glinting Dagger. Actually, yeah, it does it once on your turn at least.
Yeah, it'll untap him once at combat, so you can do it once first main and once second main.
And then it'll tap after that, just to have an untap blocker, I guess.
Yep.
Gandalf the Grey will allow you to untap stuff. Jeskai Ascendancy is the classic cast a spell, untap Boe. Probably one of the best cards in the deck is Jeskai Ascendancy.
You're playing Jeskai. Jeskai Ascendancy is one of the best.
Yep. And Mage Right Stone does a similar thing. Again, untapping creatures with activated abilities.
I actually really liked Gandalf in this deck because it's whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, choose one that hasn't been chosen. So you can tap or untap Boe, which is good. Well, untap probably. And then it deals 3 damage to each opponent, or you could copy target instant or sorcery you control.
Oh.
You may choose new targets. And then eventually you have to put Gandalf on top of your library, which is a shame. But before you do that, you do get to cast something with Boe, untap it, cast something else, copy it with Gandalf. It gives you a little bit more of these really powerful effects, which maybe will be enough to take over the game.
Yeah, and you're going to need as much value as possible, I think, to really get the most out of it.
Absolutely. Because the best cards with Suspend, you just want to be able to cast them more. So I think you're going to put cards in here that are just going to grab an instant or sorcery out of your graveyard and let you play it again. There's a lot of creatures that do it in these colors: Archaeomancer, Mnemonic Wall, Ardent Elementalist, or my favorite, Exalted Flamer of Tzeentch.
This is a Warhammer card, 2 blue and a red. At the beginning of your upkeep, return an instant or sorcery at random from your graveyard to your hand. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, this deals 1 damage to each opponent. Kind of like your Charmbreaker Devils, Yeah,
it's a Charmbreaker Devils, and it'll just keep giving you at least something with Suspend back, so you always have something to do with Boe.
All right, how do you win with this deck?
I have no idea. I was so excited to talk about Face of Boe, and I was like, "There's all you can do this, you can do that." And
right now, our win condition is an 8/8 elephant.
Yes. And honestly, that's the most on theme one.
Yeah.
The only other thing I could think of was you're casting really expensive spells for cheap. Okay. So it might be something. It might be like a Sunbird's Invocation deck.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but here's the thing, the Lotus Bloom doesn't have a mana cost.
Right, that's the thing, is not all of them do.
Yeah,
so, if we're talking about our, Chronomantic Escapes, which is 6 mana, or, the crazy white one, the
9
Heroes
mana.
Remembered, is 9 mana. So if you can cast it, then you get your Sunbird's trigger for 9, which is great.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's good with, the Gargadons of the world, but it's terrible with the Restore Balance and Ancestral Vision and Wheel of Fate and all of the other ones that you want to be casting.
Yeah, it's a mixture.
It's not exactly a perfect win con. It goes with stuff like Shark Typhoon, which makes stuff equal to the mana value.
Okay.
But
and then Chromhost Siege Shark makes incubated tokens, Chromhost Siege Shark.
Yeah, equal to the mana value. And it's thin. It's not great.
Thin. Yeah, it's not great. 1,000-Year Storm you put in here as well, which is just you're getting so much value. Maybe you have a turn where you're tapping Boe 3 or 4 times, casting a few spells with 1,000-Year Storm out. You're just creating so much value that you find a win con.
Yeah, you cast Ancestral Vision and you draw 12 cards and hope there's something in there.
Yeah, you hope there's an 8/8 Elephant Flying Vigilance in there.
It's tough because you're playing really, really powerful cards. You're playing Black Lotus, you're playing Ancestral Vision, Ancestral Recall, and your win con is a 9/7 without evasion.
Yeah,
so
it's not great.
It's a tricky deck to build. It's definitely fun to play. I think it'll have a lot of trouble closing the game out.
Yeah, but let us know in the comments if you have a better win condition, maybe even a flavorful one.
Yeah, would love a flavorful win con for him, because otherwise it's just I don't know, brain freeze. It's not great.
Yeah, I don't think storming out is what I'd want to be doing with Boe.
Right. Yeah.
And you're already jumping through a lot of hoops to get him untapped over and over again to use the ability.
I was looking at the EDH rec for this, and every deck has 100 untappers in it.
Yeah,
and it's I don't even think you need that many. How many actual suspend cards do you have in the deck?
Every untapper
15?
also takes a slot of a suspend card,
right?
Potentially. So,
and if you don't have a suspend card, then your commander doesn't do anything. Then now he's a 0/4 or something like that.
Yeah, I think Boe is actually a really tough nut to crack, but the power is there. And here's the thing: they will keep releasing suspend cards in the future.
Yeah. True.
And especially if they do more Doctor Who sets, you can expect to see more of that. Mm-hmm. So I have a feeling that this has the power level to get up there. And maybe there's some infinite loops you can do with the suspend cards that don't resuspend themselves as well.
All right, let's move on. We are going to talk about our very first Doctor of the episode.
Not our first Time Lord, however.
Not our first Time Lord, but our first Time Lord Doctor.
Yes, the first one is the 5th Doctor, numero uno. Uno.
Cinco.
Cinco. Whoops. Cinco.
2, a white and a blue for a 2/2 Time Lord Doctor.
What? There's no 5 anywhere on that.
I know.
Should have been a 5/5.
At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control that didn't attack or enter the battlefield this turn. Untap those creatures.
All right.
So this is white and blue, and you can untap all the stuff that didn't attack and put counters on them. Great. So the perfect companion for these doctors, there's a whole suite of companions that you could choose. Our favorite for this one is Susan Foreman.
Yeah, this is a doctor that says
companion?
a companion, sorry. Also a Time Lord, but says if you would planeswalk instead, look at the top 2 cards of the planar deck, and then you sort of scry them, and then you planeswalk. Doesn't matter unless you're playing Plane Chase. More importantly, just has tap, add a green mana.
And she's 2 mana for 1 and a green.
That's a creature that taps, that doesn't attack, and then will get a counter from the 5th Doctor and grow in size every single turn.
And gets your 5th Doctor down a turn earlier.
Yep.
So you Susan Foreman on 2, you 5th Doctor on 3, you untap it, put counters on, well, just Susan, not the 5th Doctor quite yet.
Yeah, and you're going to want a 3-color deck as well, I think, to really get the best out of all worlds here.
For sure. So that means the deck that we're going to be talking about is white, blue, green. Obviously you can combine the 5th Doctor with whatever Doctor's Companion you choose. This one's our favorite because it goes with Mana Dorks.
Yeah, and you're going to want to play a bunch of those in this deck because eventually getting a Birds of Paradise to be like a 5/6.
Yeah.
Pretty sick. Incubation Druid is real nice because you're going to tap it for 3 mana the moment it gets those counters. And here's the thing about you'd play these creatures and it's like, oh, I can't get the ability immediately. It's like, that's okay. They're a Mana Dork. They couldn't tap this turn anyway.
Right.
Rishkar Pima Renegade kind of changes the math on that, but this card
Really
is
good.
super good in this deck because now every creature with a 1/1 counter on it has tap, add a green mana.
You can tap all your creatures for that mana, then the Doctor untaps them. You've got tons of mana untapped for your opponent's turn. You got moves, you got all your blockers up. Seems very powerful.
Gyre Stage evolves and then taps to add a green for each 1/1 counter on it. So boom, love that.
Kami of Whispered Hopes is great in this deck. It says if you put a counter, you put 2 counters on it, and it adds mana of any color where X is Kami Whispered Hope's power.
Yeah, very good.
It'll get bigger and bigger and give you more and more mana every turn.
Inga and Essica is great because it gives your creatures vigilance and a tap ability on it. So if you want them to attack and then tap, awesome. If you don't and you just tap them for mana, then you're going to get that +1/+1 counter from the commander.
Yep. Remember, if you attack, you don't get the counter from the 5th Doctor. He is a peaceful boy.
Yeah.
But it gives you something to do with your creatures if you aren't attacking with them.
Yep.
That kind of effect is so powerful that I think this deck wants all of these. I think it wants Elven Chorus, which is like a Cryptolith Rite that lets you pay creatures off the top of your library. Plus Cryptolith Rite that just lets all your creatures tap for mana. That means you're like doubling your mana every turn when you untap.
Yeah, it's really powerful.
Really, really powerful. It gives you a ton of mana to react to your opponents or to dump into the activated abilities maybe that you're tapping.
Yep. And there's lots of creatures that just have straight up tap abilities, like Mother of Runes,
Great.
Sereth, the Viper's Fang. There's also the other mother. I forget the name of the newer one.
But Daughter of Runes.
Daughter of Runes.
That's not it.
Anyway,
I can't remember.
they tap to give creatures protection. So it's
Yeah.
great to be able to do it, have it something go in as an attacker, and then hold the ability up for the rest of your turn cycle to do it again.
Really good with something like Skrelv, which wants to give something like hexproof or unblockable from a color. You can attack, get that toxic in, and then untap it so you can hold it up for that protection.
Yeah, that's great.
Sereth the Viper's Fang is sweet because it's tapped creatures have death touch, untapped creatures have hexproof. All of your stuff is going to be untapped at the end of your turn if it didn't attack, I suppose. It seems good.
Yep. And then there are different ways to have activated abilities that allow you to draw cards or get value out of your deck. Captain Sisse allows you to search for legends by tapping it, putting it into your hand. Imagine doing that twice per turn cycle. And Sisse becomes a 3/3, a 4/4, or 5/5. Pretty good.
I like Yisan a lot in this deck, especially if all of your creatures tap for mana. Yisan says 2 and a green, tap, put a burst counter on Yisan, search your library for a creature card with mana value equal to the number of burst counters on Yisan, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle.
Yeah, and you're
So you
instantly going to get a Mother of Runes with that too.
Yep. Go get a Mother of Runes, untap Yisan at end of turn, go get something else. You're going to be cranking through these Yisan counters.
I like Machias the Lunarch a lot. It's a creature that taps to add a 1/1 counter and also taps to remove a 1/1 counter to put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control. So you can see the combo here. You tap it for its ability, the commander gives it another counter. Then you can start removing those counters as well. So you'll never be at 0/0 for Machias. You'll always have a way to add more counters with your commander.
I think this deck is the kind of deck that you're just playing activated abilities until your creatures are big enough to kill everybody.
Yeah.
You're holding up counter spells. You're holding up board protection. You're holding up even more creatures if you choose to run like flash type stuff. Like Vivian, Champion of the Wilds, is a planeswalker that says you may cast creatures as though they had flash.
Yeah, and you want to do this on the end step before your turn so that the 5th Doctor sees that it's not a creature that entered the battlefield this turn or attacked.
Yeah, and you can use all of your mana dorks on your opponent's turn to cast it.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
So you're making sure that you can use that mana that you've held up and also get counters on it for your commander.
Yeah, each of your turns are going to be so impactful because you're just going to get bigger and bigger creatures, and eventually you want to attack with them, but for now, totally fine sitting back.
Yeah.
Gandalf the White also giving flash, as well as Tidal Barracuda, Raft Capuchin, Ship's Mage.
Yeah, and there's
Flashy.
lots of other ones. This was some of my favorite tech in the deck. I think this deck could run a lot of Convoke spells.
Oh, yeah. Good call.
Because if we like our creatures tapping for mana, we can certainly use them for mana with Convoke spells. So Court of Calling is an instant with Convoke. It's X green, search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle.
One of my favorite cards of all time now, Clever Concealment, allows you to convoke out a 2/white spell that says any number of target non-land permanents you control phase out. So it's a protection spell and you can also do it on your turn. If someone's targeting you, you can wait and hold it up because, again, you'll have those creatures untapped, so you can do it on the end step, which is awesome.
I have had a ton of luck with Transcendent Message.
Oh.
This is X blue. 4 blues, but remember your creatures can tap for their color.
Yeah.
It has Convoke, and it says draw X cards. So if you have this deck is trying to get a board together. If you have 5 creatures, you can tap this, easily draw 5-6 cards at instant speed. I've drawn as many as 14 in a token deck. At instant speed. So you untap with all those cards.
Yeah.
All of your creatures will get more counters on it. Just keeps your hand loaded.
Speaking of tokens, you got Sprout Swarm, which has Convoke, and then you're buying it back for 3. So if you have at least 5 mana worth of Convoke, you get cast it for free, get it back, put a 1/1 green Sapperling, and then fuel up your Transcendent Message or Court of Calling or whatever it is.
Yep. March of the Multitudes is also a token spell with Convoke.
Yeah, so now that you have all these creatures, how do you win?
Counters. Take advantage of all
Not
of the
counter spells, by the way.
Yeah, well, that too, but +1/+1 counters.
Yeah.
Your commander's slowly been gearing them up every single turn, getting you value. You want stuff with hardened scales to speed up that process. You could do something similar to your commander, like Virtue of Loyalty.
I think you like this a lot because this allows you to attack with your creatures and still get the +1/+1 untap ability.
Right. This is the enchantment from Wilds of Eldraine that says at the beginning of your end, keep end step untap counters, similar to your commander.
You win the game with Herald of Secret Streams. Creatures you control with 1/1 counters can't be blocked, so you may just have an army big enough to just wipe people out at one point, and they're unblockable, which is great.
Great counter win con is Sigarda's Summons. This is 4 white for an enchantment. Creatures you control with +1 counters on them have base power and toughness. 4/4 have flying and are angels in addition to their other types. So you've been biding your time. Your creatures have 2 or 3 counters on them. You slam this. Now all of your creatures are 6/6 angels, 7/7 angels.
And then Damning Verdict is a board wipe that pays you off for having creatures with counters. Destroy all creatures with no counters on them. So one-sided board wipe, that's going to be painful.
Yeah, and this is a +1 counter deck with full of activated abilities, so you know what we're going to say. It's Agatha's Soul Cauldron.
Yeah, this card is just going up in our books over and over again. It just fits in so many decks, and especially this one.
So powerful. And exile any creature and give the activated abilities to all of the creatures that you've just been loading up with +1 counters.
As long as they have 1/1 counters, every single one of them gets those abilities.
So we talked about the 5th Doctor with Susan. I think that's a very cool build. But there is another companion that I think is worth looking at. We wanted to recommend him to you because he's a little cutie.
It's a resourceful cyborg. It's Nardole, 1 in the blue. You can tap to add blue for each counter on Nardole, only to cast non-creature spells. It has Undying, so it will come back with a 1/1 counter. and it's a Doctor's Companion. Now, if you pair this up with a 5th Doctor, you are now playing just an Azorius deck.
Yes. So it's white-blue, but it's a mana dork that keeps getting bigger every turn.
Yep.
So instead of just tapping for green, this one taps for more and more and more every turn. Looks a little bit different than one that is green because it's a little less counter-focused, a little less mana dork
less
focused.
counter-focus for sure.
But it's probably, traditionally, it's white-blue. It's a little bit more controlling.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, 5th Doctor, for contributing to the Powerful Commanders list.
Thank you for your thoughts, 5th Doctor. We're moving on.
We have a few more here. The
Yep.
next one is the Master Multiplied. Get back
love
to
this
math
one.
class, everybody. 4 black and a red for a 4/3 Time Lord Rogue with Myriad. So every time it attacks, you create a tapped and attacking copy of it for each opponent you control that's not being attacked. And it says the legend rule doesn't apply to creature tokens you control.
Okay.
Myriad
Works
tokens.
because he's a legendary Myriad.
And then triggered abilities you control can't cause you to sacrifice or exile creature tokens you control.
So you don't sacrifice or you don't exile the Myriad tokens at end of turn.
Yeah.
So if you attack with the Master, you get 2. Next turn, you attack with 3 Masters, you get 6.
I'm really upset that they didn't include what Myriad does.
Yeah, 'cause it is
literally all the
confusing.
other parts of the text refer to stopping the Myriad downsides with a legendary creature.
Right. Confusing, but sweet.
So the goal of this deck,
The most straightforward way to do this is just to get the Master out as early as possible and
make
start
as
going.
many Masters as you can. Yeah.
Because if he attacks once, you're out of control.
Yeah, and they all have Myriad, the copies.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're keeping them. And they're like, well, if I get rid of the real one, then I won't sacrifice the other ones.
Doesn't matter.
Those say that too.
Yeah, they all have that the protection ability on there. Kind of cool.
So if the Master attacks one time, there's too many Masters. Now you're out of control. So you want some fast ramp to get your commander down on the battlefield. He is 6 mana.
Yeah.
So Dark Ritual, Jeweled Lotus, Jessica's Will, Mana Geyser. We've told you they're good. They still are.
Yeah, there's a good chance that people instantly kill the Master when they see it. So you're going to definitely want to get the mana for it. And then you also might want to make sure it has haste. So you don't give them any chance. Because all you want to do is get at least one copy of the Master out and surviving. Because from there, it can continue to multiply over and over again.
Yep. And if he has haste, that means we're moving right away. That also means if you have extra combats, so if you have a spell like Mass Hysteria that says all creatures have haste, it helps your opponents out, but you're the aggressive deck, so it's helpful. It's only a single red for that enchantment. If you attack and you make the 2 Myriad tokens, if you went to a second combat without giving everything haste, your 2 Myriad tokens
don't have haste.
So they cannot attack. You can only attack with that 1. But if everything has haste, now your second combat, you can attack with those 3 immediately.
Yeah, so you want universal haste granters. Tuck Rubble for creatures you control have haste.
Just have it.
A lot of cards in red say this. Mass Hysteria is the best, I think, because it's just 1 red mana. And
so cheap.
Ideally, you're playing this on the turn. You're also trying to win the game. Because you don't want to give everyone else all the combats.
Yes.
Or, sorry, all the haste.
All the haste.
Yeah.
But we've teased it. It's extra combats. You want, like we said, there's one big turn. You want to attack and attack again and attack again and attack again.
Yeah.
And then your opponents are like, you have 39 Masters. What am I supposed to do?
Bow down to your master. So Aggravated Assault with like a sort of Feast and Famine allows you to untap your creatures and get another combat for 3 red. Morog, Fury of Akum, does it with fetch lands and just land drops in general. Bloodthirster, dealing combat damage, player, you untap it and you get another combat phase, but it can't attack that same player again. Doesn't matter, you got Myriad. So each time, if you're able to get Bloodthirster in for 3 hits, it's got Flying and Trample, then you're going to make 3 tokens. Then those 3 tokens are going to make another 3 tokens each.
Right.
And each of those tokens are going to make another 3 tokens each. Doesn't matter that you can't attack the same player with Bloodthirster.
Yeah, you'll need to find a way to give Bloodthirster Myriad. You can't. Your commander only has Myriad, but there is the sword that gives it Myriad.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bloodthirster is super good when you can make copies of Bloodthirster.
Yeah, but even if you don't, you hit one player with it, get another combat.
Yep.
Goes someone else. Hit them, go another combat. So you get 3 combats,
Yep.
but you're going to get 3x3x3 with however many masters. So you just
yeah.
fill the board
Out
at
of
that
control.
point.
Yep.
Yeah. And then Karlach, Fury of Avernus for all you Baldur's Gate fans. All those cards now I'm sure you're looking at and going, wow, look at all the new copies.
Okay. That is the most straightforward build of this. That's the most aggressive build of this. But there's lots of cards that make copies that would normally go away.
The legend rule doesn't apply.
Well,
creature tokens.
To creature tokens. So this turns off the legendary rule, but it also turns off, like Splinter Twin says, exile it at the beginning of the next end step. The Master says that does not happen.
That's right. Master very specifically says triggered abilities you control can't cause you to sack or exile creature tokens you control.
So there's lots of cards that you can sort of break wide open and keep the tokens that would normally be gone at the end of turn, especially in red. I did want to mention that it is specifically triggered abilities that he turns off.
Yeah.
If there's something that says like until end of turn and there's no at, when, or whenever, it does not work that way with the Master. If you are confused, go check out our How to Read a Magic Card episode where we talk about triggered abilities and until end of turn stuff specifically. But
so lots of cards that make copies, tokens specifically, that have the triggered ability. Jaxis the Troublemaker, Twin Flame, Delina Wild Mage, Flame Shadow Conjuring, Rionia Fire Dancer. There are so many.
It goes on and on and on and on. One of my favorites is Determined Iteration. It's at the beginning of combat on your turn, populate.
Oh, yeah.
The token created this way gains haste, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So this, as long as you have a token in play, which your deck is really hoping to do, this gives you a free populate on it for only 2 red mana on
And
an
all your
enchantment.
extra combats, this will trigger again.
Yep. Seems good.
Very good.
There's tons of these. The best one's got to be Kindred Charge, though.
4 red, choose a creature type. For each creature you control, the chosen type create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step.
I choose Time Lord.
Ooh, boy. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, man. There's lots of keywords that also work with this that are just sacrifice triggers that aren't necessarily copies. Blade of Selves, of course, give anything myriad. Fearbolg Bolg Flutist says steal a thing. It gains myriad. Now you keep those 2 myriad tokens,
That's so good.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
My favorite application of this is Kari Zeb ship Skyship Raider.
Because you keep the monkey?
Because you keep the monkey!
Yeah, when Kari attacks, you create Ragavan, the not busted one, but still legendary 2/1 monkey red creature token. Enters tapped and attacking, and then exile the token at the end of combat. Or not.
Or not, and make another monkey every combat.
More combies, more monkeys. They're legendary too, so it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Urbrask Forge just gets out of control. You just make
a
tons,
1/1 and a 2/1 and a 3/1. It's like, unless you block, I'm keeping this.
Yeah, and after a certain point, they just start trading with everything.
My favorite tech in this deck is Stone Idol Trap. 5 in a red for an instant trap.
Trap!
Costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature.
Hey, you're gonna have a lot of those.
Could be yours, could be your opponent's. Then it says put a 6/12 colorless construct creature token with trample onto the battlefield. Exile at the beginning of your next end step. You just don't. You just pay like 1 red mana and make a 6/12 at instant speed.
Yeah, I mean this commander's pretty sweet.
It's pretty sweet.
You got a very specific goal in mind, but by the end of it, boy, if it's not flavorful, I don't know what you're doing.
It's cool. There's a lot of cool cards that go with the Master Multiplied. Of course, he is 6 mana, so make sure you got a lot of ramp.
Gotta multiply. Play that early ramp. Play that, Dark Ritual.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's keep moving. It's another baddie. We've talked about a lot of bad guys today.
Yeah, well, it turns out the bad guys are actually pretty powerful.
They're pretty sweet. And we're going to have a whole episode about the doctors.
Don't you worry. All right, this one is the Rani. It's 1 and blue, black, and red. 3/4 Time Lord Scientist. Whenever the Rani enters the battlefield or attacks, create a red aura enchantment token named Mark of the Rani attached to another target creature. That token has enchant creature, and enchanted creature has +2/+2 and is goaded. And then whenever a goaded creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, investigate.
This card's sweet.
Yeah, so
Grixis Goad.
Grixis Goad. Every time Rani is entering the battlefield or attacking, you're making Mark of the Rani. They're like drinking her potion. They're +2/+2, and goaded can't attack you unless you're the only opponent left.
Yeah, you got to be careful about that. You really want everybody to die at once with the Rani.
Yeah, otherwise you're, oh, cool, and I killed everyone but you. Now you have 6 creatures with a +2/+2 on it. Oh, no. But that's kind of thematic, that your own creations are the things that take you down.
Yeah, that's how it goes when you're the bad guy, especially in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
First thing, you got a blinker.
Yep, ETB, baby.
Displacer Kitten is a really good way to blink it. Because you can blink her multiple times, goad that, and they're permanently goaded.
Yeah.
So every blink is like, well, as long as they have the enchantment on them.
Yep.
Every blink is so powerful and puts more threats against your opponents onto the battlefield.
Yeah.
Also,
they're
if there's
huge.
only one creature, just load it up, make it bigger and bigger and bigger.
Oh, that's right.
And
You
bigger.
can re-enchant the same creature,
Yeah.
and then it becomes a must kill by someone, and it will never come at you.
Seems good.
Thassa Deep Dwelling does the same thing on your end step to get another one. Sword of Hearthenhome, it seems pretty good.
Gives you the attack, usually a free attack and the blink.
And the land. And then Blur, just that is like a ghostly flicker type effect. You do get a draw card from it, but yeah, getting more Rani triggers.
Cool.
Yay!
Definitely blinking. Definitely want to goad as many things as possible. If you're blinking, like putting a blink package in for your commander, I like stuff that also have ETBs.
Yeah.
So you get more use out of the Displacer Kitten or the Thassa Deep Dwelling or the Conjurer's Closet, whatever you're running.
Yeah.
In that case, I really like a Vengeful Ancestor. When it enters the battlefield or attacks goad target creature, whenever a goaded creature attacks, it deals 1 damage to its controller.
Yeah, you're going to like that a lot because, again, the goad trigger is also on your commander. So anything that goads other creatures, Jeering Homunculus does it when it ETBs. Blood Boil Sorcerer will do it for 1 in a red, sacking an artifact or creature.
This one I have been wanting to put in a blink deck.
Yeah.
So, but like Life of the Party is 3 in a red for an elemental. It's a 0/1
about
with
this
first
card.
strike, trample, and haste. When
0/1.
It's a 0/1 with first strike, trample, and haste. And when it attacks, it gets +X/+O until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. Okay. And then when it enters the battlefield, if it's not a token, each opponent creates a token that's a copy of it. The tokens are goaded for the rest of the game. So Life of the Party comes in, it gives all of your opponents a life for the party,
Yeah.
and then they're goaded. They have to attack each other. They have first strike, they have trample, they get huge, and they have to fight each other. If you can blink Life of the Party,
Oh, give them even more?
they keep getting
Just
more
pure
lives
chaos?
of the party.
You know, this would be really good in the Master Multiplied.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
I dig Life of the Party. I think it's really, really fun, especially in a blink deck.
Yeah, there's lots of other goad payoffs here. Bothersome Quasit, goaded creatures your opponents control can't block.
Uh-oh.
Which is funny with a bunch of Life of the Parties out. A lot of the impetuses as well will goad creatures, make sure that they cannot attack you, and then boom, you're just swinging away.
Bjorna Nightfall Alchemist is it's one of the Friends Forever ones from Stranger Things. It's tap, sack an artifact. It deals 1 damage to target creature, and it goads that creature. So you're making investigate tokens from connecting with goad creatures. You can sack the clues and goad more.
Yep. And then there's a bunch of goad payoffs. So we saw Karazakar, the Eye Tyrant, in an old Game Nights episode. Whenever an opponent attacks another one of your opponents, you and the attacking player each draw a card and lose 1 life. So that's all the goaded creatures. And then also Karazakar goads other creatures. Furkrag congratulates you for getting creatures goaded and dealing combat damage, drawing cards, putting 1/1 counters on it. And then Baloth Baratil Entertainer. This is another Baldur's Gate card, right? Yeah. Creatures your opponent control with power less than Baloth are just straight up goaded. And when those goaded creatures die, you create a treasure token.
Seems good.
Seems real good.
If you need a win con in this deck, there are various options. Willbreaker is always one. Every time she enters, you make an aura that targets something. This Willbreaker says if you target something, you steal it for as long as you have Willbreaker.
That's gross.
So you're like, I'm going to go that, steal it. I'm going to go that and steal it. Especially toward the end of the game, you need something so that they don't just have a ton of creatures you buffed.
Yeah. And then, of course, you're making a lot of enchantments. So how about some Enchantress/Constellation-esque effects? Pretty good. Doomwake Giant's going to give our opponent's creatures -1/-1 for each time you enter. Doomwake Giant or another enchantment enters the battlefield. So that could be a really quick board wipe.
And something that you can keep repeating.
Except for those +2/+2 creatures, they'll be kind of hard to kill.
Yeah, that's true. But they're on your side.
Yeah, Grim Guardian is a drain effect for your... Sorry, not a drain effect. It just makes opponents lose life every time you have those enchantments enter.
Hateful Eidolon says, whenever an enchanted creature dies, draw a card for each aura you controlled that was attached to it.
Ooh, very good.
So you're loading the board with auras. If there's a board wipe, you're going to draw some cards off of it.
And then Woe has a bunch of cards that care about this as well. Ashiok's Reaper allows you to draw cards, and then Wicked Visitor is going to drain people like the Grim Guardian did.
Pretty sweet. Grixis, it's like kind of cursey.
Yeah.
Definitely goaty. I like the Rani a lot.
Rani is a lot. Master is really cool. So is the Beast. A lot of sweet cards.
Yeah, we like the baddies, but we do have one more Doctor to talk about.
It's a Doctor. It's a good guy.
It's a good guy. It's the 6th Doctor
Numero
specifically.
6. Got it right. Numero uno.
Well, his mana value is also 6.
Hey, we did it.
4 green and a blue for the 6th Doctor. He's a 3/3.
Adds up to 6.
It says whenever you cast a historic spell, copy it, except the copy isn't legendary. This ability triggers only once each turn.
Would you thunk it? It only does it one time, but at least it's not only at sorcery speed.
Yeah. Historic spells, remember, they're sagas, they are legendaries, they are artifacts.
Yep. And then we like Barbara Wright as the companion. It's a history teacher, 1 in the white for a 1/3. And it says sagas you control have read ahead. So you can basically choose what chapter your saga enters on.
I don't know if this is the most powerful companion to go with this Doctor, but it is the coolest.
Yeah, for sure.
I really like Barbara Wright as a saga commander. So we're going to talk about Bant sagas with the 6th Doctor, specifically sagas with really powerful, like, last chapters.
That you want to get to.
That you want to rush to, like Urza Saga. Urza Saga comes in, you're like, you know what? I'm going to skip the 1st and 2nd chapters. I'm okay just searching my library for an artifact with 1 or 0 and putting it onto the battlefield.
Yeah, Kiora Best, the Sea God.
Huge.
It creates an 8/8, which is cool, but the main one is gain control of target permanent and opponent controls, untap it.
You could even rush to the sleep one and tap all non-land permanents target opponent controls. They don't untap. Just be like,
that kind of shuts down a player almost entirely, for sure. Yeah.
But for 2 turns, their board doesn't untap.
Yeah.
This one's cool. It's Jin Gataxias.
Yeah, the newest one that flips into a saga. So when that enters the battlefield, you can read ahead. But this one's pretty good because, again, you're going to copy the historic spell. This will kill it. It's got 2, but that's okay.
So you've got Jin Gataxias. You pay 3 blue, and it says whenever you cast a non-creature spell with mana value 3 or greater, draw a card. So you cast Jin. If you copy him with the 6th Doctor, you get a token one, and then you get the real one. The token one, don't flip over. It's going to exile and
go away
die.
because of legendary.
Keep the token one. But if you flip the real one, you can rush straight to the Omniscience.
Read ahead. You may cast any number of spells from your hand without paying their mana cost, exile the Great Synthesis, then return to the battlefield.
Yeah, so you pick like 5 cards, you flip it back over, you draw off of 2 Jin Gataxias.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
It's really good actually with the flip Praetors, which is off flavor. I understand.
Yeah, a little off flavor, but that's okay. They're just joining in on the magic story. 3 Blind Mice, chapters 2 and 3, and this is just good, by the way, with the 1st Doctor or the 6th Doctor, because you just get to get 2 of them. Create a token that's a copy of target token you control. So, by the way, the tokens are the copies that you make. So the 6th Doctor copies the historic. It's a token. 3 Blind Mice can copy that token.
Yeah. So if you have 2 3 Blind Mice and you've got 1 is a token and 1 isn't, you can read it. You can make a copy of 3 Blind Mice.
Read ahead.
Which can make a copy of 3 Blind Mice.
Read ahead.
Which can make a copy of 3 Blind Mice.
Yeah, so there's already an infinite, I think, in standard right now, thanks to 3 Blind Mice.
Yeah.
You can bring it into your game as well.
You just have to have, your 6 mana and then 2 mana commander on the battlefield.
There's a good chance that there's the Doctors know the 3 Blind Mice fable.
Yeah.
So it's flavorful.
It's on flavor.
Yeah, it's super on flavor.
A lot of cool sagas. If you're building a saga deck, you pick the ones that you like, what you want to build around. There's a lot of them that mill and bring stuff back to the battlefield. Maybe you're doing something a little bit more graveyardy, but you're a history teacher. You want to tell stories. Tell the story that you want to tell. If you're doing sagas, you're definitely manipulating those counters, the lore counters.
That's right. So if you watched the game nights for Lord of the Rings, you saw that Goldberry can do this. You can basically read ahead in a different way by either removing or adding counters. So there are a bunch of cards that allow you to manipulate them either one way or the other, or both sometimes.
Yeah, you can use Goldberry. We'll do it. I like Scholar of New Horizons as an activated ability that says tap, remove a counter from a permanent you control. Search your library for a Plains card, reveal it. If an opponent has more lands than you, it goes onto the battlefield. If they don't, you just put it in your hand. This is also probably good with the other Doctor we talked about.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, you're going to be doing this to be like, cool, I'm going to go back a step. And then I'm going to get that step again because I really want to keep tapping down everything with Cure Best the Sea God, for instance.
Sounds gross.
Yeah, real gross. Power Conduit. Mm-hmm. Flicker of Fate allows you to reset the thing entirely, and then you can read ahead or not even. Surrounding Resonator is going to double up what happens on those sagas. Same with Weaver of Harmony. There's a lot of ways that really help you double up and get the most out of sagas, because they are a little slow, but having read ahead and the ability to manipulate the counters on them makes it pretty good.
Yeah, because of the read ahead ability, it's really, really good to rush everything to the third chapter, have them all to go to the graveyard, and then bring all of your sagas from the graveyard back to the battlefield, because you can read ahead to whatever chapter you want.
Yeah, that's right.
So stuff like Brilliant Restoration and like Open the Vaults that just say, take all the enchantments in your graveyard and put them on the battlefield.
Get them back.
Give you a huge burst of value, and you get to choose exactly how you get it. Just gives you a lot of control over how your sagas are working.
And
sort of
order,
turns your
too.
sagas into like modal spells.
Yeah, they're almost like these little planeswalker things
Yeah.
that pop down and do a bunch of stuff before they disappear, but now you get to get them over and over and over again. I think that's how you win with sagas, is you can't just like be like, all right, cool, made an 8/8, bye. It's like you gotta actually get so much value off it compared to, you know, a creature with an activated ability or an enchantment that just sits there doing stuff for you all game.
Yeah, something like a Starfield of Nyx that reanimates an enchantment every turn on your upkeep.
Yeah.
If you can reanimate, like one of the big ones that we talked about, if you can reanimate Urza Saga or Kyurabes the Sea God and rush straight to the like steal a permanent or tutor something to the battlefield over and over and over again, that's just going to give you a lot of selection and a lot of power.
Yeah, very good.
On to the battlefield.
Yeah, we're talking about enchantments. You can do an Enchantress deck in Bant. There's a lot
Sure
of cards
can.
that allow you to do that.
Yeah, you want all of the normal Enchantress stuff that would go in an Enchantress deck. We've talked about them a lot lately, so we're not going to spend too much time on them. But I wanted to mention the ones specifically that are about saga, the enchantments
Yeah.
going to the graveyard.
Yeah, Historian's Boon is awesome.
Yeah.
3 and a white enchantment. When it or another non-token enters the battlefield, you make a 1/1 soldier. But also when the final chapter ability of a saga triggers, you make a 4/4 white angel with vigilance, a Sarah Angel.
So you cast one of those big reanimation spells, bring all your enchantments back, make a ton of soldiers.
1/1s.
Then they all read ahead, go to the graveyard, give you a ton of angels, and be like, all right, deal with that.
Concordant Crossroads, swing for the win.
Exactly.
Knight of Doves is a new card from Woe. Whenever enchantments enter the graveyard from the battlefield, you make a 1/1 bird. So those are always fun.
Yeah.
I will say if you want to go the historic route that isn't sagas, then you're going to probably want to go like legendary creatures, in which case you're going to be playing your mirror boxes and your mirror galleries and ways to make sure that your cards don't die when you double them up.
Well, your commander does that. He says the tokens that you make aren't legendary.
He says that?
Yeah.
What? The token isn't legendary.
Yeah.
Never mind.
You're good.
I thought it was the only the madness guy or the you know what's his name?
The master multiplier.
Master of multitudes, master multiplied.
If
No,
you
you're
do
right.
want to go that direction, I think there's a very cool companion that's a good option for
Yeah.
that. It's Romana the Second.
Ooh.
She is also white. She's 3 and a white for a Time Lord Scientist. She's a 3/3 with vigilance and has an activated ability that says 1 tap, create a tapped token that's a copy of target token that entered the battlefield this turn.
Yeah, that's nice.
So with Romana, you can, and the 6th Doctor, you can copy a legendary spell, and then Romana will give you another one.
Yeah.
You could even like cast Romana, get 2 Romanas. If they have haste, use Romana to copy
More
Romana to copy
Romanas.
Romana, copy Romana. Then you got a lot. You got Romana the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. Keep going.
Yeah. And then you can do Twinning Staff again. You can do Errant Street Artist. There's a lot of ways
Yeah,
to...
does it copy
to-
the spell?
Yeah,
Yes.
it does. It does copy it. It's
Nice.
similar to Ashad, the first commander we
Whatever
talked
you
about.
cast. Yeah. A note on that. This doesn't work with Anointed Procession or Doubling Season because you are not creating a token. The spell
right.
becomes a token.
Yeah.
So don't make that mistake. It doesn't quite work with like Parallel Lives. Any of those that say if you would create a token,
Yeah, a
you're
copy
not.
of a permanent spell becomes a token.
Becomes.
You're not creating a token. Wow, that's just one of those weird...
Nitpicky and confusing.
Yeah, that's so it goes. Okay, we did it. We talked about the most powerful commanders from who?
Yes. All right. We talked about a lot. Who's your favorite today?
The Beast, by far.
He's pretty
I always want to do this in draft, which is play Rakdos, grab a creature, steal it, and then sacrifice it.
Feels so
But you
good.
can't really do it in draft, but the Beast is a deck that is completely about that thing, so I'm kind of down for that.
And you sort of want to keep him stunned so you can keep drawing cards every
Yeah,
time you
oh,
do
totally.
it. Like once you sort of want to like kill him and bring him back. So
Well, I think you still untap it
you
if it is untapped and you still draw the card.
Oh, it's not about removing the counters.
Yeah. It's just
Oh, it's
that-
untap it. I see.
Yeah.
And that's the counters don't matter. You don't want the counters. Get them out of there.
Yeah, it doesn't
Now
matter.
you have a 6/6 that you can untap.
Yeah, it's the Beast as well.
Love him.
Love that. I heard that he has a special rose in another hall of his home, and the petals are falling off. And when the final 6th stun petal falls off, his life will be over.
The Doctor and the Beast.
The Doctor and the Beast. He's a prince too.
He's the Deathless Prince. All
Wait.
right, I want this altar. That's like half beast, half the prince.
Yeah, there you go.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, love that.
It's like the beast.
Would
slash
Beast be
Deathless
black
Prince.
red? I think the Beast from the fairy tale would. Yeah, black red seems okay for that.
Yeah, but like she teaches him how to white.
If only every princess would teach me how to white.
How to white. My favorite is easily the Master Multiplied.
Both Rakdos, let's go.
I love the idea of this aggressive deck that's like, if he attacks, you're done.
You're done,
This
yeah.
is it. I'm just coming for you.
How many masters can you make? You could
it's
try
so
and set
much
a
fun.
record in each game.
I really like Dreadfeast Demon, which does a similar thing. It makes like
yeah,
6/6
yeah.
tramples, and then you sack more things and get more 6/6 tramples, and it's just very difficult to deal with and a ton of
cool.
fun to play.
Yeah, I love
so,
that.
Love it.
Okay, what about the most powerful commander from the set? I'm just going to say River Song because it just has an infinite combo.
Those infinite combos. This was an interesting question for this set because I wouldn't say that Doctor Who is a powerful set. Like, we talked about a lot of cool commanders today, but the people are going to be like, this can't be the most powerful in the set.
Well,
You're like,
relative to the set, yes,
it's
sir.
a low power set. Like, just generally, these are not the caliber of commanders that we often see. They're
Even
flavorful.
out of regular sets, too, you know?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, they're flavorful. They're curios.
They're fun.
Curios. They're fun, but they're not necessarily like, you know, you're going to win the game super fast or very easily.
Yeah.
Like, River is powerful, but she's going to make you work for it.
Yeah, you have to work for it. It's not just like on its face, Chulane, Teller of Tales.
Yeah,
power.
exactly.
Corvold.
Which
you
is a
know.
good thing.
Yes, I agree.
But it definitely makes this set, like, it is a little bit trickier. That being said, I think my most powerful commander is Missy, because there's a lot going on there that I think just
Villainous choice is pretty sweet.
Is
yeah.
quite good. And if you can get, like, 10 artifact creature tokens, which isn't hard between mirrors and thopters and servos and that kind of thing, Missy becomes very dangerous. And she just says on your end step, draw 3 cards. Which is pretty good, even if you're not doing infinite morph combos.
Yeah, it's a good point. Missy is pretty fun. Also, it's kind of blue-red, but just adds black. So really, our most powerful and favorite commanders were all black, red, blue, or some combination.
Are they all bad guys? No, not River.
No.
Not River's
not a bad guy.
But yeah, Missy, the Master, and the Beast are all villains.
I don't know. The Beast is looking pretty...
He's smiling.
Yeah, that's a smile, all right. Yeah. All right, to the listeners.
Which commanders do you think are the most powerful commanders from this set? Did we miss any? Are there any that you're like, why didn't you talk about that? This one's crazy. And then
There's gonna be, I'm sure.
Are you planning on building any of the commanders that we talked about today? What are the most exciting, coolest pieces of tech that we didn't talk about?
Yeah, and if we messed up something about the lore, which we definitely did, maybe on purpose, let us know in the comments. I'm sure there's a fun story or a fun tidbit of knowledge. Did you know that Aragorn, when he kicked that thing, he broke his toe? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's something like that in the Who universe. Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah.
And if you're not too busy typing up that comment, maybe you want to go to your browser window and type up cardkingdom.com/command, because you're going to want to buy some of these cards. You maybe buy the precons to have the precon environment to play against your friends that are all Whovians. That's a lot of fun as well, to always just sort of have that going. I've done that with the Warhammer ones. I've done it with the Lord of the Rings ones. So
go buy 50 copies of the Master Multiplied.
Yeah, so you can have actual copies of the Master Multiplied on the battlefield. That's kind of fun. So let us know when you go to cardkingdom.com/command what you do end up getting, because you can get Magic cards anyway. You may as well support the show and the content that you love. We hope you love it. And get them straight to your doorstep in one convenient package. cardkingdom.com/command.
And once those are in your hand, you're going to need to protect them. Magic cards are precious and made of paper. We trust ultrapro.com/command.
I'm just mixing them all up. I'm so sorry.
To take care of our collections and make sure that they are stored correctly and in a beautiful, convenient, safe way. Like we talked about before, I love the satin cubes specifically for my decks.
Cubes.
The cubes are shorter. They don't have the dice case underneath. I like mine to be a little bit more compact so I can carry a ton of them with me.
Yeah. Cube it up.
And they also have the officially licensed Magic art. So when there's a set and you're obsessed with the art, like Lord of the Rings or maybe Doctor Who, go to ULTRAPRO and see if they have the playmats to match that set, because they make some pretty stuff. And it makes your battlefield look cool and intimidating at your next game night. Again, support the show and pick up some sweet accessories over at ultrapro.com/command.
Big thanks to our team here at the Command Zone. We have Damon Lenz, Eric Lem, Megan Yip, Gaurav Galati, Jordan Pridgeon, Jamie Block, Arthur Meadowcroft, Bryson Long, Josh Murphy, Jake Boss, Sam Waldo, Evan Limburger, Craig Blanchett, Katie Cole, Mitch Traver, Gabriel Pozos, and Josh Lee Kwai.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter @JFWong and @Josh Lee Kwai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.